Now this is Acts 16 verse 23 through to 34. Now when they, that's the authorities in Philippi, had struck them, that's Paul and Silas, with many blows, they threw them into prison, commanding the jailer to guard them securely. And he, having received such a command, threw them into the inner prison and fastened their feet in stocks. But about midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns of praise to God, and the prisoners were listening to them. And suddenly there came a great earthquake, so that the foundations of the prison doors were shaken, and immediately all the doors were opened, and everyone's chains were unfastened. When the jailer awoke and saw the prison doors opened, he drew his sword and was about to kill himself, supposing that the prisoners had escaped. But Paul cried out with a loud voice, saying, "Do not harm yourself, for we're all in here." And he called for lights and rushed in, and trembling with fear, he fell down before Paul and Silas. And after he brought them out, he said, "Sirs, what must I do to be saved?" They said, "Believe in the Lord Jesus, and you will be saved, you and your household." And they spoke the word of the Lord to him, together with all who were in the house. And he took them that very hour of the night, and washed their wounds, and immediately he was baptized, he and all his household. He and all his, it says, and the household is in italics. So the original Greek would have said, he and all his were baptized. And he brought them into his house and set food before them, and rejoiced greatly, having believed in God with his whole household. Wonderful, wonderful, isn't it? There's Paul and Silas rejoicing and singing hymns of praise to God in the prison, and all the other prisoners were listening, so that even when they were set free by the earthquake and their chains fell off, they still wanted to stay with Paul and Silas. It doesn't tell us actually what happened to these other prisoners. I bet they got saved too. But there's the prison guard, the jailer. He's ready to fall on his sword. He knows that his end will be nasty if they find that he's been unable to keep these prisoners in jail. And Paul says, "We're all here. We're all here. Don't do anything to yourself." And he says to him, "What? Wow!" I suppose he's been listening to these hymns all about Jesus they've been singing. And he says, "What must I do to be saved?" Some people have said, well, he's saying, "What must I do to be saved from the authorities, because I've lost all these prisoners?" Well, he hadn't lost all these prisoners, so he would have been saved from whatever punishment there would be. He'd probably be honoured the fact that there was an earthquake and he still kept the prisoners. What must I do to be saved? I think he was cut to the quick. What must I do? And he says, believe in the Lord Jesus. That's all you've got to do, is to believe in Jesus, and you'll be saved, you and your household. Everyone who believes and calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. And they believe, and then they're baptized. That's the sequence. You believe and are baptized. That's what happened to these people. And the jailer, bless him, he took Paul and Silas, into his house and cared for them and dressed their wounds. Paul and Silas in the prison were not prisoners. They were free to praise the name of the Lord Jesus, and that's what they did.